Looking back at my life before my wife, anyone may conclude that I am missing out on anything. Many viewers of the Alaskan reality show found Noah Brown to be the ideal member of the ensemble. Conflicts were occurring both behind the scenes and in plain sight, but they were unaware of it. Nevertheless, many believed it was staged. Here in this video, we'll go over the 5 individuals whom Noah Brown despised the most from the Alaskan bush and the reasons behind his hatred for them. Rain Brown, the lost little sister, comes up at number 5. Noah Brown's little sister is Rain Brown. Merry Christmas. Catherine Raindrop Brown was the eccentric creative spirit of the Alaskan Bush People, and the world once knew her by that name. Her purity, compassion, and originality won her many fans. But her purported innocence, as Noah Brown sees it, departed a long time ago in the past. What remains is a person he views as extremely unstable, manipulative, and dangerous. It's devastating, to be honest. However, Noah's tone has changed. He's angry and furious in his speech, with contempt and possibly treachery. Perhaps you will get the reasoning for this after you observe the events around these two. Before things got worse, let's go back in time. There was a hint of emotional fragility in Rain from the start. She ranked last among her siblings, Brown family, and following Billy Brown's death, she tended to snap at a lot of people. Even though Noah had already cut himself off from the family drama in order to protect Rain, his wife and their children, he saw some truly scary changes in Rain. Rain didn't merely descend into melancholy or sorrow, as Noah testified. Substance misuse became an issue for her at some point. This isn't about the odd drink or a small amount of marijuana. Her erratic behavior could no longer be explained away as emotional suffering. Noah accused her of using meth, cocaine, and heavy alcohol use. For use in formal legal papers, petition for a restraining order, Noah candidly depicted a sister engulfed in despair and addiction. Furthermore, he insisted that she was endangering not only herself but also others. See that this wasn't a disagreement between relatives regarding ownership of property or family legacy. Due to his worry of Rain's influence, Noah took him to court to ensure that he was legally separated from his immediate family. He was afraid to take any kind of risk, so he made sure she was far away from them. He claimed she was often popping up out of the blue, wreaking havoc, threatening their mother, and even messing with her meds. It is the same mother who is supposedly being used by a daughter who is going crazy, and who is fighting health problems. Josiah Lorton, who is Rain's husband, was also entangled in the same. Noah was worried about the safety of his family since he thought the two were armed, dangerous, and unexpected. There was more to it than that. It might have been illegal. Noah made some subtle but resolute remarks online, giving the public an insight into their broken relationship. Neither was he likely to without specificity, and unlike many others, he did not rely on esoteric analogies or use passive-aggressive Bible verses to obscure his meaning. In his words, he's done. He doesn't trust her, he's had enough. He went on to say that he had no interest in continuing their relationship. On the other hand, the program as it was never depicted on screen ever reflected any of this. Instead, Rain was always shown as the idealized, spiritual, nature-loving girl who adored horses and painted rocks. However, the narrative of Noah portrays a much darker image in real life. The hypocrisy is the icing on the cake. Rain has always been the first to share spiritual quotes, love, heavy remarks, and emotional photos, but now she's the one who has rejected all the family's professed values and is, according to him, a danger about maturation and restoration. In the meanwhile, her brother is attempting to shield his wife and children from her by obtaining a protective order. This development is disheartening and repulsive. How did a family that professed to be devout and rooted in traditional values turn out to be responsible for this level of dysfunction? And how did Rain, of all people, transform from being Noah's beloved younger sister to the person he purports to fear the most? Some viewers contend that Noah is being excessively severe, that he's exaggerating, that Rain simply needs assistance, not animosity. However, it is important to recall that Noah's first fight with his brothers was the first time he took dramatic legal action, which says it all. Even at this point, he no longer refers to Rain as family. They all tried to help. He uses cold tones in interviews, social media, and online Q&A sessions, and he treats her as if she were a patient of their mother's. He makes accusations about her alleged unpredictable property visits, and her denial of the damage she's inflicting. These are not the acts of a grieving person, rather they are clear signs of someone who is sliding downward and bringing others down with her. Noah's word is not alone when he accuses her. Numerous witnesses, screenshots, and police reports support his accusations. The involvement of law enforcement has increased, more than once. What's happening behind the scenes of a once beloved TV family is a full-blown marital disaster. The most devastating words were Noah's last words to Rain. "I wish I could protect her. Unfortunately, I must prioritize the safety of my family before anything else." That is truly tragic and damning. As a result, we are left with the remnants of a devastatingly broken sibling bond. Observing this is revolting, but the thought of how long they were apart is even more unsettling, hidden under a mask of family unity and wilderness survival. Noah's life has turned upside down when it comes to Rain Brown, the former center of the Brown kids. And if you thought that was bad, wait until you hear about number 4, Amy Brown, the matriarch who allowed the madness to flourish. Now let's turn our attention to Amy Brown, the mother, the supposedly strong matriarch, the iron-willed pillar of strength, who supposedly held the Brown family together through bushfires, harsh winters, and cancer treatments. However, when you peel back the sweet exterior and the carefully crafted saintly persona cultivated by television, the real Amy Brown emerges. The end result, at least in Noah's view, is a totally different person. Someone who is exposed as a manipulator and enabler, a woman who watched her family fall apart while she smiled for the camera. This is the one thing that disgusts Noah the most. And let's not forget that when Amy was fighting stage 4 lung cancer, Noah was there. He returned, assumed responsibility, sacrificed, and even put his independent life on hold to help take care of his mother. Noah's love for his mother was profound, genuine, and unconditional at that time, but then something changed. Something very sinister occurred. Noah claims that Amy turned against him and took a stand with Rain when he began to criticize dysfunction, particularly Rain's reported drug usage and unpredictable behavior. This is coming from a mother who had previously pleaded for healing and peace. Amy was allegedly very angry, not at the court, but at Noah for allegedly overreacting when he filed for a restraining order against Rain, and she chose to remain silent instead of standing up for what was true and confronting her daughter's downward spiral. For the life of me, I don't see why any mother would gaslight her child when he begs for aid, especially when the youngster is trying to protect his family. Noah has dropped hints in many threads and postings that Amy has let it sink in for a moment. She allegedly brought Rain over even after the restraining order drama began, knowing full well that this would cause friction and put Noah's wife and children in danger, but she chose to ignore his worries and even work against him. In the midst of your son's heroic efforts to defend his house, wife, and babies, you, his mother, choose to turn a blind eye to the mayhem instead of bringing order. This is unbearable emotional sabotage on a grand scale. As if that weren't hard enough, the claims that really shocked the fans came from Noah, who claimed that Amy had begun to decline behaviorally and psychologically, claiming that she was inconsistent with her medication use and exhibiting symptoms of mental illness on a regular basis. Tragically, Noah, who fought for his mother's survival, now openly implies that she is either a victim of domestic violence, or, worse, that she is under the influence of Rain, implying that she may have been involved in or at least covering up drug use in the family. Influence or involvement in her daughter's downward spiral. Anything's all truly shocking and upsetting, and here's the worst part, Amy never denied anything. Her complete lack of engagement, not a single post, not a single press release, speaks loudly about her lack of willingness to address Noah's accusations. But Noah is done buying it, and that's because he's lived it up close behind the scenes. Some fans still defend her, saying she's grieving, unwell, or confused. But sadness or illness doesn't excuse allowing poisonous conduct. Get away from the Discovery Channel's sanitized versions of her show for a second, and discuss her public persona. Some Alaskan Bush People fans hold Amy Brown in the highest regard, considering her faultless performance as a model. This image of the warrior mother, the strong-willed spiritual leader of the family, is becoming more at odds with the one that Noah paints, a woman who avoids responsibility, shows favoritism, and would prefer to hold on to a fading illusion than face the ugly truth. Amy not only allowed dysfunction to flourish, but actively safeguarded it, isolating her one son who dared to reveal it, Noah, in the process. This was a reality that she had a hand in creating. Destroy the family was his intention, but he became enemy when he refused to remain silent, even though he wanted to preserve it and get the truth out, so that mending could start right away. Family is a word for mothers like Amy. These kinds of systems are called enablers. The worst type of enablers aren't the ones who do nothing. The worst kind of enablers are the ones who try to make truth-tellers feel guilty by making them feel like they're the problem when they speak up. Section. That if one were to remain silent, all would be well. However, Noah chose not to remain silent. He was no longer willing to engage in that game. As a result, he has been excluded, disregarded, and treated disrespectfully by the same woman who kissed him goodnight beneath the Alaskan stars. So it's not surprising that Amy is one of Noah's 5 most hated people. It's not that he never loved her, it's just that when love is betrayed, it creates the most profound contempt. Noah had given up attempting to mend their relationship. He has moved on from being a pretender, a hurtful person, and someone who waited for undeserved apologies. Now he has a new family, his wife and children, and the tranquility they have created away from the cameras and the poisonous nostalgia of Browntown. In order to safeguard this peace, he has drawn a solid. The third person on the list is Josiah Lorton, the outsider who entered an already dysfunctional family and added fuel to the fire. Amy is on the opposite side of this line. If anything irritates Noah Brown more than a poisonous sibling, it is this stranger. Josiah Lorton, in his view, did precisely that. Few Alaskan Bush People fans were familiar with Josiah. He appeared unassumingly as Rain Brown's enigmatic husband, an off-screen mysterious figure who preferred to keep to himself. However, away from the editing rooms of Discovery Channel, Josiah transformed into something much darker in Noah's life. He became the last straw, the person he never wanted near his family. The man who, according to Noah, was never meant to be involved in. It's clear that this family is in disarray. Josiah didn't merely marry into the Brown clan, he became a part of its disorder. Rather than providing Rain with the support she needed to stabilize her mental health or overcome her addiction, Josiah, according to Noah, became her protector, her enabler and co-conspirator. Josiah, according to Noah, became her protector, her enabler, and co-conspirator. Josiah's involvement allegedly brought a darker tone to the situation from the start. According to Noah, Josiah did more than just turn a blind eye to Rain's destructive behavior. He allegedly participated in it alongside her, heavily abusing substances like meth and the kind of accusations that lead to welfare checks, and legal investigations, all of which Noah started in a last-ditch effort to save his mother, children, and himself from harm. And these aren't minor claims either. Picture this. You've already severed ties with your unstable sister, due to her manipulative and threatening behavior, and you've pleaded with your mother to stop supporting her. Then, right when you believe things are getting worse, a stranger marries your sister and purports to move in, arm himself and stockpile, stand guard against you like you're the threat. This is precisely what Josiah stands for to Noah, who came into the family already on edge, allegedly carrying a survivalist mindset, driven by paranoia. Noah has claimed on numerous occasions that he was afraid Josiah had weapons, was emotionally unstable, posing a threat not only to Rain but also to anyone who dared to confront her, including him. What was most terrifying was that nobody in the family appeared willing to intervene. What was once just rain spiraling into a downward spiral now included Josiah, a hazardous combination of impulsivity, alleged substance abuse, and defiance. But the most unsettling part came when Noah revealed that Josiah allegedly meddled with the medical treatment of Amy, Noah's sick mother. It was reported that both Rain and Josiah were involved in the mismanagement of Amy's medication and health needs. In his midst of dread and anger, Noah reported Josiah to the authorities about his presence and troubling behavior in the home. This enraged Noah, but Josiah's intrusion into Noah's family affairs was the final straw. Noah has made it clear time and time again that Josiah, who was clearly an outsider, started to exert control over Rain's interactions with the rest of the family, acting as a gatekeeper, managing talks, and even threatening things. It can be challenging for families to deal with in-laws, particularly in high-stakes situations like this one. However, this isn't your average awkward Thanksgiving dinner. The man in question poses a direct threat to Noah's mother, his children, and the tenuous ruins of the Brown family. Noah still considers Josiah nothing more than a ring-wielding stranger. He is not related to him and never was. Rather, he is a poisonous element that wreaked havoc on an already engulfed home. He reached for a hose and ignited another match. Some people bring misery into your life, and Josiah Lorton in Noah's world fully deserves that title. Josiah may not be as famous to the public, but he's a major factor in why Noah. Number 2, Bear Brown, the hypocritical brother who talks a good game about loyalty, but doesn't live up to. If anyone in the Brown family loves to talk about family, loyalty, and sticking together through thick and thin, it's Bear Brown, the so-called king of extreme, who is always running shirtless through the woods, yelling about honor, loyalty, and survival. But when you take away the acting, what is he? To Noah Brown, it's just the sound of someone who has failed at the same ideals he preaches about. For an incredible amount of time in his life, Bear has always presented himself as the untamed defender of the Brown family name, the adrenaline-fueled sibling with an unwavering devotion to his loved ones, and an unyielding will to succeed. However, when the public's perception of the Brown family started to crumble, so did Bear's facade. The brother who has always been the one to stay out of trouble, Noah, has finally had enough. He is, in a word, repulsed by Bear's hypocrisy, which he has demonstrated through his silence, lack of courage, and failure to speak up when the stakes were high. While Rain was engulfed in what Noah characterized as a lethal combination of meth, drink, and hallucination, Bear did nothing to intervene or safeguard their mother. Instead, Bear downplayed the situation, attributing it to insignificant family strife, and pretended that Noah was being excessively dramatic. Bear merely aligned himself with Rain, while Noah proceeded to file restraining orders, record abnormal conduct, and implore the family to awaken before something irreparable occurred. He wasn't merely griping about unpleasant texts or forgotten birthdays. It was at that very moment that Noah understood that what Bear had said about putting family first was lip service. If Bear had been loyal, he would have gone deeper, asked the tough questions, and stood up for what was right, not for what was loud, but for what was. It's incredibly frustrating because Bear could have been the mediator, the one who would have heard all sides and worked to mend the fences, but he opted for denial, optics, and to continue to distance himself from the situation. Play nice on camera while ignoring the emotional battle that went on behind the scenes. It's important to remember that this is the same Bear Brown who has a history of instability, legal issues, violent outbursts, and domestic outbursts with his ex-girlfriend Ray. The man had more police reports than Bear was previously Noah's closest sibling, the one he could talk to about anything, but after asking for responsibility, Bear abandoned him, according to his cabin diaries. Noah never hit anyone or yelled for attention. Instead, he received abandonment. The one who, in secret around the campfire, vented his frustrations about the dysfunctional family, but when it was time to do it aloud, Bear retreated and pretended it wasn't happening. What's worse is that he turned the fans into a weapon, turning them into a weapon against family is forever, he began to post nebulously, while Rain and Josiah persisted in their downward spiral and Amy rotted in silence, unabated by anyone. Behind closed doors, Noah has said things about Bear that he'll never dare speak openly, not because of fear but because he longs for the brother he once knew,
the one who battled with him instead of against him, but that brother, according to Noah, is no longer relevant. To Noah, Bear personifies all that he despises about his family, their inability to face reality, their weakness in the face of danger, and their intransigence in standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. Because what do you do when someone you once loved becomes a part of the problem? You let go, you walk away, you no longer have any hope for a relationship with Bear. Noah hasn't broken ties with Bear just yet. He has cut hope altogether. Safeguard your tranquility. And that is precisely what Noah is doing. Whenever on rare occasions anyone asks Noah about Bear in public, he stiffens his jaw, his voice gets rough, and he always gives the same emotionless response. This time, the answer was, he made his decision based on what was best for him. Decide, and that decide wasn't related to me. Finally, we reached the last name on Noah Brown's list, the one that likely hurts the most, and that is Matt Brown, the fallen brother who broke more than just himself. Matt Brown, the pioneer, the eldest of the Brown siblings, the one who was meant to lead, protect and serve as an example. Instead, he became a ghost, an addict, a liar and a specter in Noah's eyes. Not because the betrayal was loud, but because the breakdown became silent, let down. What's more worse is that he turned into someone who left the family, only to come back years later, pretending he still deserved their trust. Matt Brown has documented his own slide more vividly than anyone else. It has been a long and ugly road. Posted his anguish on YouTube, Instagram, and in interviews about his struggles with addiction, mental illness and recovery. Fans perceive him as a man attempting to put his life back together, but Noah perceives him as someone who caused destruction, abandoned it, and now seeks praise for his recovery without ever making amends. Matt's battles with substance addiction and alcoholism were tough on him and almost broke the family apart. As the seasons of Alaskan Bush People came to a close, his disappearance became increasingly noticeable. One second he was beaming on television, and the next he went to rehab, relapsed, checked in again, etc., etc., and each time Noah and the rest of the family had to deal with the emotional aftermath. Matt drank himself to death, and according to Noah, he stole from relatives, lied, and did a lot of other dirty on multiple occasions emotionally manipulated their parents, and withdrew whenever anyone dared to speak the truth. As the world admired Matt's courage in sharing his recovery journey online, Noah observed from the shadows a brother who had never once expressed regret for the pain he had inflicted upon his family. Noah has spoken. It is not just disappointing, but absolutely soul-shattering, when an older brother, whom you have grown up looking up to and who is supposed to bear the emotional burden of the family, suddenly becomes the biggest burden. Slowly but clearly he recounted the years that Matt vanished, not physically but emotionally. 1 minute, Matt was seeking help, and the next he was accusing his family of being toxic, violent, and pretending to be well. Yes, extremely abusive. Matt has publicly accused his own family of gaslighting him, neglecting his mental health, and portraying him as the outcast. Noah's perspective is incredibly simplistic. In Noah's eyes, Matt is just a man who messed up, abandoned and the harsh reality is that Noah does not despise Matt because he is broken. Rather, he despises him because he refuses to pick himself up and mend the things he has destroyed, for demanding love without giving it, and for playing the victim since no one wants to throw him a welcome back party. True responsibility, for returning to a group setting after a long absence, demanding a place at the table he had previously left behind, and that is why Matt is on this list. It's not that he was an awful addict, but rather that he was a disappointing sibling. Because as soon as the family needed a man, Matt vanished. Just when they were finally at peace without him, he reappeared, asking to be regarded as a victim. Noah, for his part, was sick of playing along and had had enough of waiting for an explanation. He made up his mind to stop answering calls, direct messages, desperate messages from the past. And Noah thinks Matt Brown is dead, what the cameras didn't capture. The Brown family, who appeared to be a strong and loving unit to viewers, was actually far from ideal. All anyone could see was the portion of the family that was visible to the world, the part that Billy Brown, the father, chose to portray. The family's troubles and toxic connections were hidden from view. He was quite controlling, not always allowing his wife and children to have a say or make choices on their own. His leadership style felt more like control than love, which stunted their development into independent adults, shaped by their father's choice. Even as adults, several of the children continued to obey his instructions as if they were little children. Matt Brown, the eldest son, had a difficult time. He battled alcoholism and eventually sought treatment. Matt felt left out and hurt because his father pocketed the money they made from the TV show and provided little to nothing to the children. He also said that the family didn't support him enough when he was away. Matt hasn't been a part of the family for years. The other brothers also had issues. Bear Brown's relationship with his ex-wife Raven was particularly tumultuous. The couple battled frequently and eventually divorced, and he even claimed that family members had assaulted him, which only made matters worse. After their father passed away, Birdie and Rain appeared utterly sad. Rain has spoken about her feelings for Bear, and some have speculated that his erratic conduct may be an indication of his inner turmoil. Health has expressed moments of disorientation, and is known to be an introvert by nature. Fans have begun to question whether she and her partner are coping with emotional agony due to their relative quiet and lack of public interaction. At first glance, the Brown family's decision to live in relative isolation seemed like an adventurous one. Nevertheless, contemporary scholars have begun to question whether this was not really an attempt to exert control over the children, as they did not attend regular school and had almost little contact with the outside world. This made it difficult for them to acquire new knowledge or make independent decisions. To sum up, the Brown family appeared close and happy on television, but their actual lives were burdened with pain and control. Their story demonstrates that even in seemingly perfect families, there can be underlying issues. Do you believe Noah Brown's reasoning are reasonable? Leave a comment, give us a like, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. A healthy family needs love, respect, and freedom, and it seems like the Browns may have missed some of